It's crucial to understand that the climate has always been in flux. Ice ages and warm periods have come and gone, driven by natural forces like volcanic eruptions, solar radiation, and changes in the Earth's orbit. But for the first time in Earth's history, humans have begun to influence this delicate system in ways that are not only profound, but unprecedented. To understand the full scope of climate change, we need to travel back in time to the birth of our planet. Earth's climate has been changing for billions of years, long before humans arrived. Around 4.5 billion years ago, the planet was a molten ball of rock, slowly cooling down. Over millions of years, the Earth formed a solid crust, oceans, and a stable atmosphere, conditions that would support life. Throughout Earth's early history, the climate fluctuated dramatically due to natural phenomena. Over time, the planet's atmosphere stabilized and life began to take hold. This process was far from uniform. In fact, dramatic periods of cooling and warming have occurred regularly, driven by a range of factors including volcanic activity, shifts in the Earth's orbit, and the intensity of solar radiation. These events have resulted in ice ages, such as the Pleistocene glaciation, during which massive ice sheets covered much of the northern hemisphere. By around 10,000 BC, as the last ice age drew to a close, the planet entered what is known as the Holocene epoch, a relatively stable climate period. It was during this time that early human civilization began to flourish. Agriculture, the rise of cities, and the development of technology set the stage for the modern world. The 18th and 19th centuries saw the rise of industrialization. The Industrial Revolution marked the beginning of widespread human activity that would impact the global climate. Coal, oil, and natural gas became the fuel sources that powered factories, transportation, and eventually cities. During this time, human emissions of carbon dioxide, CO2, and other greenhouse gases began to climb, though the effects on global climate were not immediately apparent. In the early 1900s, the discovery of the greenhouse effect continued to evolve. In 1903, Swedish scientist Svante Arrhenius published groundbreaking work on how CO2 emissions could lead to global warming. He proposed that a doubling of CO2 in the atmosphere could raise global temperatures by several degrees. Though his theories were met with skepticism at the time, they laid the groundwork for future climate science. By the mid-20th century, scientists had gathered enough data to confirm the growing presence of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. In 1956, Charles David Keeling, an American scientist, began measuring atmospheric CO2 at the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii. This marked the start of what is now known as the Keeling curve, a graph that shows the steady rise of CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere. By the 1980s and early 1990s, the effects of climate change were becoming more apparent. Rising temperatures, more frequent and intense heat waves, shifting weather patterns, and the melting of polar ice caps all pointed to significant changes in Earth's climate system. In 1988, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, was created by the United Nations and the World Meteorological Organization, tasked with studying climate change and providing scientific information to policymakers. In 1992, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, known as the Earth Summit, was held in Rio de Janeiro. This was a critical moment in the fight against climate change, with 178 countries signing the Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, agreeing to begin international efforts to tackle the growing threat. As we move deeper into the 21st century, the future of our planet depends on our collective action. The science is clear. We have a window of opportunity to reduce emissions, protect ecosystems, and transition to a more sustainable way of life. With new technologies, international collaboration, and a groundswell of public demand for change, it is possible to mitigate the worst effects of climate change.